My name is Jazzy. I'm 27 years old. I'm an elementary teacher and a million other little things. And yeah.
Okay. Like if someone were to say, what's the biggest thing you've learned in your 27 years of life so far?
Learning how to just be my own best friend. I've made a lot of friends in my life and I'm close to my family and everything, but just learning how to appreciate my alone time and tell others about that too. I think that would be my story. I do a lot of stuff by myself. I hang out by myself. I take myself out on dates.
Nice.
So that would be a good way to sum up me as a person.
So a lot of self-care, self-love. And what do you think, have you always been like that? Or was it a moment in your life where you realized, I'm young, I need to do me? And
I think I was sort of always like that because I was an only child up until I was 11. And then even when my sister was born, my mom doesn't have any kids, so I was still kind of always an only child. And then even going into high school, when it was just me and my mom, she worked a lot, so I spent so much time by myself that I've just kind of always learned how to be by myself. So it's never been something that was like, oh, I'm lonely. It was just like, oh, what am I gonna get myself into today? And so even as I've gotten older, I've learned how to take that and like find positive things to get into and just enjoy doing things and creating memories with myself.
Nice. So was there ever a moment in your life where you felt like you were really weak? And if you did, what moment did you realize you were strong?
My weakest moments would have to be just opening up to people in general. That's not like my strong suit. I'll keep everything to myself, whether it's emotions, feelings, success, anything like accomplishments or goals that I'm trying to accomplish. That takes a lot for me to share that with people. So I think the first time that I felt like strong is when I finally start to open up to people about anything at all. Whether it's like I'm trying to do this and I'm letting you know like these are the goals I'm trying to accomplish, or this happened and it made me really sad, so I want to talk to you about it or something, because that's very hard for me to do.
Why do you think it's hard for you to open up to people? Do you think it has to do with being an only child and learning to deal with things on your own?
Yeah, because if something happened at home, there's no one to go and talk to, like, hey, remember this happened, or I can't believe this happened, how do you feel? It's just me, so I had to learn how to deal with that on my own anyways. And then I think looking back, all of my cousins and friends, they all had siblings, so they always had someone they could go to and talk to about it. So it was always just like, how do I learn how to deal with that on my own?
Right. So being a woman and being a woman of color, how do you think you've learned, even though you had that upbringing, how to still have a voice? Because it's very important to still feel like you're heard and have a voice. So what are some things that you did to help yourself be more comfortable having a voice?
Writing. When I was younger, I wrote poetry, and I don't know at what point I gave that up. But when I was younger, I wrote poetry. Getting older, I have come up with a million book ideas, just liking to write that kind of stuff. Writing love letters to people. I still am big on love letters, whether it's like I'll write Father's Day notes to my dad or Mother's Day notes or just love letters in general. So writing is the way that I'll share my voice. It's easier for me to do that than to use my actual voice to speak, so I like writing to people.
Nice. Who or what has helped you stay motivated and strong?
My family, just because as I'm getting older and I talk to more people and I see that not everyone has the same support that I have, I appreciate that support a lot more. So like when I hear that people don't have their parents backing them and things 100%, it makes me appreciate how much my parents do that for me. And then just knowing like they're never gonna judge me for anything, I can go to them for anything, whether they agree with it or not, they're always gonna try and steer me in the correct direction, but let me make my choices. So they're my biggest motivation because I know that I can always depend on them for support in general, no matter what the endeavor is.
So you said earlier that your mom worked a lot, and then so what about your dad? Your dad's a part of your life as well. So can you explain like the relationship dynamics for you?
I'm the epitome of a daddy's girl. So I lived apart from my dad for a while, but it never like changed our relationship or anything like that. I don't know, when I was a kid, I'm sure I was a daddy's girl then, but that's my best friend. I tell him everything. I go to him about everything. you know, even if like one of my moms is mad at me, my mom or my stepmom, I'll still go to my dad and talk to him about it. And he just kind of always has like that sound reasoning to give to me. It's never biased. It's always just, this is the facts, this is how you should treat it. Handling my emotions, he's really good for just taking advice on how to take your emotions and your feelings out of things and deal with things logically. He teaches me about just walking away from things and knowing like you don't have to address every single problem that faces you. You can walk away from it and deal with it when you're ready to. I can literally just send my dad a text and say I'm stressed out, and he's calling me 2 minutes later.
Nice.
So that relationship is important.
Do you think that your relationship with your dad has given you a better idea of what kind of man you want to be with in the future, or like set your standards higher, or what do you feel? Because I've heard people say that, but
I think it's made it harder for me because one, I'm a very independent person, so one, value my independence so much, and then two, feeling like I already have all the man I need. It's hard for me to just let a man come in and be a man because I have my dad and I have myself. So, but at the same time, I do want, you know, marriage and love and all of that. So my dad this is what I want my man to be like. You know, I know how my dad takes care of me. I look at how my dad takes care of my stepmom, and just seeing how my dad treats women in his family in general. He grew up raising most of his younger cousins who also happen to be girls. He had a very young mom and had a lot of aunts. So just seeing how he treats women just set the tone for how a man has to treat a woman to be a part of my life.
That's huge, because I feel like a lot of women don't grow up with their dads, and it shows throughout their lives. I feel like, I mean, me being one person who didn't grow up with my dad my entire life, I feel like it's definitely something that I think about, you know, does that shape who you are as a woman, or does it not, you know? So what's something that you feel you would want your perfect relationship, or what's a quality that you think a perfect relationship should have for you?
Friendship and just lack of judgment. Like just the ability to be yourself 100% and not feel like you have to hide something from your partner, or you have to be a different version of yourself around your partner. I feel like it's important to, like, no matter where I go, no matter who I'm surrounded by, if you're there, I can always be me, and you're always in my corner. And that's something I've just learned from seeing my dad in his marriage. Just they're each other's best friends. Like my stepmom can have a million friends, but she's always returned to my dad. My dad can have a million friends, but he's always returned to my stepmom. And so it almost makes everybody else in their life look like an acquaintance, because they have each other, and their bond is so close because they're comfortable with each other, they know each other, they go to each other about everything. So I think that friendship and just freedom with your partner is important.
Yeah, that's huge. I think also being able to grow up and see what that looks like also gives you a huge advantage. So that's awesome. So let's talk more about your identity as a woman. You have natural hair, and it's red. Like, let's talk about just like what made you want to express yourself the way you are now as a 27-year-old woman?
It's taken a lot to just be 100% comfortable with who I am. I've struggled with weight in the past. I've struggled with having like horrible skin. And so just like learning how to love all of those flaws and find what's perfect in those flaws, perfect for me, has helped me be confident. You know, like I still feel like I struggle with my weight, but you know, learning how to accentuate my curves and just wear things that flatter me. My hair, I've changed my hair color a million times. I've changed my hairstyles a million times. I've gone damn near bald. So that's kind of learned to be like you know, it is what it is. It's like an accessory. Like, dress it up. I mean, if I have on an outfit and I don't have any red, at least my hair matches something in it because it's red. So I just kind of learned to use what I have as an accessory. And as far as like identity,
like, what would you tell younger girls who are having a hard time expressing themselves, or just like finding who they are and embracing it and feeling confident in the world?
I think just figure out like what makes you you. Like, for a while I always tried to figure out like what makes me beautiful to other people. And I think for me, I find like I accept it, and I've never struggled with accepting it, but like I don't always feel like a sexy person, but I've always felt like, you know, I'm a cute person, I'm a beautiful person, but if sexy is not your thing, then that's not your thing. If being sexy is your thing, then that's your thing. So just learning how to like find what makes you you. Like, for me, some people love my smile. So if that's what makes me cool, then that's what makes me cool. So people just have to learn how to find what makes them beautiful to other people and that you love about yourself too.
Very good. If you can tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
You do not have to give attention to every man who wants to give attention to you. Yeah. I thought about that recently. Like, you don't have to give attention to every man just because they like you, love you, look at you, want you, anything like that. Move on.
Yeah. What do you think happens when you do try to give every man a piece of you, or not a piece of you, but that?
I mean, a piece of you, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, it literally does take away from you, and you have to build it back up. So even if you give yourself to somebody emotionally or physically, or just mentally too, giving them that time and energy, you do have to build it back up once they're gone. So once they take it from you, it's not just, you can't just move on and, okay, I'm going to function about my day. You have to build yourself back up, and you have to get that energy back. So that's why I say, like, stop giving so much of your time and energy to people who don't really deserve it, and take the time to figure out, like, does this person deserve it? And not to say judge a book by its cover, but you can tell fairly quickly which people deserve a part of you and which people don't. So take that, acknowledge all the red flags, and move on.
Don't you think in order to do that, you have to have a certain level of self-confidence and value?
Definitely have to have self-value and confidence too, because if you feel like, well, I'm not going to find somebody else, or, well, who else is going to want me, then that puts you in a position of giving your time to everybody.
Right.
But if you're okay with who you are and you know that there is someone out there for you, you don't feel like you have to give you to everybody.
Right.
So I wish my young self would have known, like, there literally are a million fish in this sea. Move on.
Right. Nice. What do you think, let's talk about current topics going on in the world. What do you think about women not having the right to have abortions and make that decision?
It's terrible. I feel like there is nobody on this earth that I can tell what to do with their body. Like, everybody's body is their choice. Whether you agree with it or you don't. And you can say, I don't like that you're doing that. Maybe if that's your feeling, that might be your opinion, but you don't get to tell someone what to do with their body. And then on top of that, whether it's abortion or birth control, there's so many reasons for why people get in the predicaments that they're in and have to make certain choices, that no one situation can be pointed at and say, like, oh, well, this is how you're handling it, it's wrong.
Right.
So I feel like everybody should have the freedom to choose, because only they know their situation, their body, what their circumstances will be, or what their future is going to be.
Right.
So I don't agree with telling people what you should do with your body.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate, and I also look at it as a time where men are feeling threatened by a lot of women, getting higher positions and kind of making changes in the world. So I feel like, us as women, we at the same time, we have to remember we never really had a voice, or they never wanted us to have a voice to begin with. So as an educator, what do you try to make sure that you instill in younger girls or even your younger men in your classroom?
I think going into it, my mindset is always like, these are children, but they're going to be adults.
Right.
And so every time I see them doing something, I always think, whatever they're doing could create a habit. So if I catch a little boy yelling at a little girl, I tell him, like, that's just not how we talk to women. You have a mother, you have a sister, you have an aunt. And even if you don't, that's not how we talk to women at all. And then if I catch, girls in a predicament where I feel like they're not standing up for themselves, whether it's to another girl, whether it's to an adult, whether it's to a child, you have to speak up for yourself. So I always kind of follow up with certain statements. Like, just the other day, I saw a student yelling at another student, and I spoke up for her, but followed it up with, and you need to learn how to speak up for yourself. You have to say, it's not okay for you to talk to me like that.
Right.
Because I feel like that's a problem a lot of people have as adults, is we just don't know how to speak up for ourselves. And then even when we do, we don't know how to do it in the right way, so people don't take it serious. So I feel like it's important to just remember that the kids now are going to be adults, and they have to have good habits, and we're there to teach them those good habits. Even with fighting, when the boys are fighting, I'll tell them, you're fighting now because there might not be a major consequence, but if you go into the street and start fighting like that, there's a consequence to it, and no one really cares to hear your side.
Right.
So you need to learn how to control your emotions now. You need to learn how to talk it out, figure out how to solve your problem now, because once you leave these doors, there's consequences that I can't help you with.
Right. So you're an educator. What made you want to do that work, and then is that all that you saw yourself doing? Is that what you always wanted to be, as an educator?
It is always what I wanted to be. I don't think I ever really wanted to do anything else. But I think my reasons for why have definitely changed a lot over the years. I've always loved teaching, and I had teachers that I feel like were terrible. You could tell they loved the subject they taught, like maybe they really loved history or they really loved English, but they didn't love the craft itself.
Yeah.
They didn't take the time to get to know the students. They didn't take the time to teach real world scenarios and prepare us for actual life. They just were like, we're going to study this book today. And that's cool if maybe you're a college professor and you just want to teach to the material, but I feel like people needed to start teaching to the actual person itself. And so what's led me to stay into teaching is just because I know, looking back, like I wouldn't say privilege, but I've had a better background. I haven't had to deal with anything super major in my life, and I know that a lot of people have, so I just want to make sure that they have the same opportunities as me. And part of that just comes with like having intellect and knowledge. You can have no money to your name, but if you have a voice and you have, the way to be able to demand what you need, you can still get far. So I feel like it's important to still help those who can be helped at this time.
What about for the younger girls in your classroom, being able to see themselves in you? How important do you think that is, especially in a field where there's maybe not a lot of teachers that look like our students?
I think because we go there every single day, we forget that they're looking at us. You literally forget that they look up to you. But when they do things like come to school, I forgot what spirit day we had, and they do things like come to school, I want to be a teacher, I'm Miss Burns. That means a lot, and it definitely like humbles you really quick and reminds you that you are literally like a mirror for them. They look at you and they want to do exactly what you're doing, and so that just helps you in how you carry yourself, how you deal with adults in the classroom, and make everything a teachable moment. Like if I am dealing with something that is stressing me out, I tell them like, this is a moment where I'm stressed out, but this is how I'm handling it. And so when you're stressed out, this is how you should handle your situation. Some of the kids have seen parents snap at me and go off on me, and while it sucks, it's also a good thing to happen, because then I get to teach them this is how you handle those situations, and this is how you don't behave. So that's a big deal for me to be there, because for some, they can see the worst negative behavior at home, and we don't want them to have those habits going forward.
Right. So I think you're definitely someone who does have a voice and you're not afraid to use it. Has that ever gotten you into problems with maybe women or men? And if so, how do you handle those situations?
I don't know how many problems it's gotten me. Well, okay, no, it has gotten me into problems. But I think it's just because a lot of people are surprised that I have the voice that I have, because upon first meeting me, I can be very quiet and just kind of timid, and it might seem like I have no idea what's going on, but I'm very observant. And so I'll point things out that need to be pointed out, and I'm very blunt about it too. But it has gotten me into problems in that sometimes I don't know the right way to say things, and that's something I'm still working on. Like, I'll just say it because it's at the top of my head without thinking of the filter that needs to be placed on it, just to make it a little bit softer for other people. And
is it more of a problem with women, or is it more of a problem with men, or is it just
it's definitely men. I mean women. With men, I feel like I talk like a man sometimes because I'm very direct and blunt, and I'll just say exactly what I feel. And a lot of women can't handle that from men, and definitely can't handle it from women. And so from what I've found is that when I say certain things, a lot of women might take it as like an insult, or me trying to offend you or be condescending, and sometimes it comes across that way, and that's something that I'm working on as a person. But it's not ever my intention. It's just me trying to just lay it out on the table so we can get past it. But I found that a lot of women don't know how to handle that from me as a woman.
And why do you think that is? Do you think it's a threatening thing? Do you think that they're intimidated?
Yeah, it's definitely threat and intimidation. I think especially like if you don't have that confidence in yourself to say whatever you need to say and not be afraid of what other people think, then someone else having that confidence to say what they need to say is going to be a threat, because now you kind of have one up over them. But for me, I don't look at it as me having one up over you. I just look at it as like, let's solve this problem.
Yeah.
And if no one else is going to say what the problem is, I don't mind saying what the problem is. And because I might know what the problem is, but it doesn't mean I know how to solve it.
Right.
So, yeah.
I get it 100%. And I think that's something important, especially for women, to know that it's okay to have a voice and it's okay to use your voice, but also understand that it's going to come with conflict and it's going to come with people trying to challenge you.
Yeah.
So I think we covered you being an educator, but you also mentioned earlier you like to do a lot of other little things. And one of those things that I know is knitting. And can you just kind of share like your journey with that and where you are with that now?
So I started learning how to knit years ago. And honestly, what made me give it up was I got into a relationship. And so it was kind of like that thing I would just do by myself, like, oh, I'm watching TV, let me knit something really quick. And then you get into a relationship and that other person fills your space. And so I kind of stopped doing it at that point. And then I picked it back up after being by myself again. And at first it was just kind of like, oh, this can be used to make money. But now, I mean, well, it was always a hobby, but now I've learned a lot from this hobby. It's taught me a lot about patience. I'm like your typical Virgo perfectionist. I have to perfect everything. And so with this, it's the one area where like I'm not going to be perfect the first time. And so it's taught me a lot about like it's okay to make a mistake and it's okay to learn how to fix that mistake and go back and redo it again. So I've learned patience from that. Fixing things again, I've learned it's okay to just take your time. Not everything is going to come at once.
Right.
So it moved past it being like something to just do while I'm watching TV. It moved past something to just make money here and there. And now it's taught me a lot.
Would you say that that's one of your passions in life?
I don't know if I could put passion on it. And I only say that because if I stopped knitting for other people, I would be okay. I would still do it in my spare time because I have fun doing it and I enjoy it. But if I feel like I've learned everything I need to learn from it, I'm okay with walking away from it. If I feel like I'm now needing to find something else to teach me something else. So I have passion for the fact that it's teaching me about myself and it's helping me focus on certain skills and just life qualities. But if I'm, end up mastering that, like if I finally get to a point where I feel like I'm very patient or I'm okay with making mistakes and redoing it, then I'm okay with finding a new hobby to do.
You're done with that part of your journey.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. So you said earlier that you had or when you were in a relationship, it took up your time to do something like this, that it's something that's valuable and a part of your journey. What do you want to tell other women or younger girls that might be going through the same thing, like in a relationship, and how that doesn't always mean that you have to sacrifice doing things,
And that's what I wish I would have told myself or known back then, because I could be so much further now. And so if there was like one piece of advice I could give young girls is like, yes, you're in a relationship, but you're also your own person. Be okay with saying no. Be okay with saying I can't do this today, or not even I can't do this today. I don't want to do this today. I'm choosing to do something else for me, and that helps too in just choosing your partner. Because if you're with somebody who is not accepting of your no's and accepting of the time that you need to spend on yourself, then that's not the person for you. And then in addition to that, if they don't have their own reasons for why they're telling you no and having something that they need to work on for them, then they're definitely not the person for you, because they're not set where they need to be either. So now in this space as a 27-year-old and picking this hobby back up, just in general, I've been able to tell people no about things more. And I'm okay with giving a reason or not giving a reason, but it's also given me self-discipline and just like, I lost that fear of like, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings or I don't want to let this person down. Like if you can't do something because you're committed to another task, commit that task. Or if you can't do something because you're tired because you've been working on whatever project, then take a nap, you know?
Right.
But for me, my mission is just happiness and peace in general. Whether it comes to the people that you allow in your life, whether it comes to the job you're working, the hobbies that you have, don't do it if it doesn't make you happy. And that's hard for people to accept because we all need a paycheck. We all have family members. We all have friends. But it is okay not to do something that doesn't bring you happiness. I've even, told my dad mentioned before that he had a cousin who was like bothered that they hadn't talked, and my dad felt obligated to talk to him because they were family. And I was like, you're not obligated to talk to anybody who doesn't bring you peace. If that doesn't make you happy, then don't put any energy into it. So I think my mission in general is to just do things that bring me happiness, because I can't be a good friend, teacher, sister, girlfriend, nothing if I'm not happy.
Right.
So no matter what I'm doing, at least let me be happy and peaceful in that.
Nice.
So if I were to own a business, whatever that business would be, I would just try to do my best to make sure that everybody working for me is content and happy and peaceful there.
Nice. You mentioned being a Virgo earlier, and I'm only bringing this up because I feel like Virgos can get trapped in this idea of being perfect and perfection. And what would you like to say, like, your journey has taught you about that perfection?
I would say I've just learned that perfection is relative. So what's perfect to me is not going to be perfect to somebody else. And that is helpful in a lot of ways because, for one, I don't have to do something to someone else's standards. If I'm happy with whatever outcome I'm doing for some project or whatever it is, if that's perfect to me, then that's perfect for me. Because if you continue to try to meet everybody else's standards, you're going to end up letting yourself down at some point. And then, so I just have had to learn that perfection is relative. Make perfect mean something to you. Don't take on everybody else's definition of perfection, because there's going to be a million of them.
So do you feel that in this point of your life, given the definition you've given, that you're perfect?
Oh, no.
No?
Not at all. No. And I feel like there's people who know me and have thought that because I'm a Virgo, and I know how to portray that in a way, or I know how to put, my best self forward. But I know that I have a lot of work on me mentally, emotionally, physically, and I'm happy that I'm at a point where I can acknowledge what it is I need to keep working on, and that I can acknowledge that I'm still working on it, and that I can look back and say, oh, I remember when I used to be like this, and now I fixed it.